Just gonna make a quick video talking about my project truck. This is a 72 Chevy 1-ton dually, formerly a two-wheel drive. If you look up here at the front end, been doing a lot of work to it over the past 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, this truck still was a two-wheel drive. Got the old busted front suspension right there. The ball joint on it had broken. Truck had been sitting for about 3 years. I'd torn it apart to fix it and wound up losing my job with this fun economy, and I've been kind of working my way back up since then. So here it is now. Went in at school. I built this front cross member for it. It's all 1/4 inch thick material. It's I cut it out on a mill using a CNC mill to cut all these pieces. See if I can get a good close-up of it here. This is my new hanger for the springs and everything. Got the steering all hooked up and everything. That's a steering box out of a 78 4x4 1-ton. Got a Dana 60 front axle underneath there. Don't have the sway bar hooked up yet, but eventually that's probably going to find its way in there. I still have to get some 1-ton springs for it. These are 3/4 ton leafs in here right now, and they're not going to support the weight of the motor. Definitely, the motor it's getting is this Cummins 12 valve over here. This is a really good running motor. Got about 230,000 miles on it. I used to drive the truck that it came out of, and the truck around it fell apart, you know, which is natural for a Dodge. They don't last very long, but the motor has, you know, just been a really strong motor the entire time I've had it. I love this engine. Not going to tear it apart, not going to do anything to it other than just clean it up, throw some paint on it, and a couple things like that. Looking at getting a Banks twin ram manifold for it, a couple little goodies like that. Need to figure out what I'm going to do there, though, because I am going to have an issue clearing the hydro boost. I've got a hydro boost on a newer truck cab in here that I'm going to be swapping out on here. This brake master cylinder is going away. It's the old vacuum style, and I'm not going to run that on this truck. I'm going to go with the hydro boost instead. Got a lot of cleanup on it to do. As you can see, the cab's got a little bit of rust, but this truck has actually got over 1 million original miles on it. It's seen a lot of road. The guy I bought it from used it to pull a horse trailer back and forth from Texas to Arizona, so it's seen a lot of time on the highway, and it's got several miles on it. It's still in pretty good shape, though, all things considered. It does have a little bit of rust in the floorboards here that's going to have to get cleaned up. You can actually see a through hole right there. Ran over a piece of steel. That's what busted the front suspension. The front tire exploded and tore the floorboard out from underneath my feet right there. You can see the hole sticking through, and I'll pop the cab open here and we'll take a look. You can see the little rust hole there. So I'm going to wind up doing a full replacement on the rockers down here, and going to be doing some serious work to the floor as well. I've got 98 Suburban seats that are going to go into it. Need to modify the brackets to make them fit this floor. Do a few other things like that, but that's all in good time. You know, the doors are in pretty good shape. Not real happy with the fact that they drilled them for speakers, but I'm probably going to go back in and weld a piece back in there and see if I can make a 6x9 fit or something like that. We'll see on the doors. I mean, I need to get those apart and see what they look like. Also, the factory gas tank is still behind the seat, but this is going to go away. I'm going to get this welded in here. That'll happen fairly soon. Haven't really done anything to the back of the frame yet. The back of the frame was cut off right here. This truck actually originally was a wrecker, and the guy that I got it from had another guy you know, take that wrecker and turn it into a sort of a Western hauler style bed, and I pulled that off there. Also, the back of the cab is in primer right now because when I bought it, it had this goofy fiberglass ducktail spoiler that somebody grafted onto it, and just wasn't really my cup of tea. I took it off of there. I didn't like the way it looked, and it was also causing the back of the cab to rust some, which it's kind of starting to peek through again, so I got to get some sanding on that. And then from when we lifted the cab off, I didn't have my cab lift built yet, so I had to use a ratchet strap with a cherry picker, so it messed up this edge up here some. I'm going to have to take that and get it hammered back out and cleaned up. I'm going to bust all the seam sealer out of there with I got a wire wheel I can put on my 7-inch grinder. We're going to clean that up with it. Get all that cleaned up there. Also, this goofy fiberglass visor here, I'm taking that off the truck. It's just going to go back, you know, straight cab. I'm not really a big fan of visors on my trucks. Up on top of the roof, it does have the original marker lights there. I'll kind of get a close-up so you can see they all sit on top of a little pedestal. I have found a set of LED lights that will go in the exact same spot that those do. They look very similar, it's just they have a flat top on them. They're a really nice looking light. I think they're going to fit the truck really well. Been doing a lot of work to it here on the frame wise. I've been working on getting the frame all boxed in. This is kind of the project I was on last night. I got some shackle hangers there from ORD with the greasable bolts, so those are going to work out really well. I got those welded into the frame last night, and you can see they turned out really well. I still need to make a spacer. It's going to have a 1/4 inch spacer on either side because it's a 3.5 inch wide leaf, and the widest bushing I could get to go in there was a 3 inch setup. So I'll make a 1/4 inch spacer that goes on each side, and then I'm also going to make new shackles out of 3/8 inch material, so those will be nice and stout. Also, to keep the truck nice and stout, to make sure nothing bends, up here on the front frame, I'm going to have a bracket that goes in right here. It's going to be at a 45. It'll keep all that nice and stout. I'm going to have one of those in the front and one of those in the rear on each side. On the inside of the frame here, I'm going to be plating it with a piece of 1/2 inch material that'll get welded in there. It's going to get drilled and tapped so I can mount a bumper to it. I'm going to build a real nice bumper on it. Actually, we'll step over here right quick. I've got the piece of material that I'm going to build the bumper out of. It's a piece of 3 inch by 6 inch 1/4 inch wall box tube that should make a nice healthy bumper. I've also got a 12,500 pound winch that I'm going to put on the front of this truck, so it should be able to pull pretty hard. Other little things, got some cleanup to do on the inside, cleanup to do on the dash. As you can see, it's the old work truck style dash. It didn't have any of the lower gauges in it, which I'm going to buy a new bezel, and then over at the shop I'm going to use the CNC to cut a piece of aluminum, and I'm going to remount all my gauges in it. The center gauge is going to be a pyrometer, then it'll have a speedometer and tack on either side, and then it'll have all the other gauges: boost, volts, amps, oil pressure, water temperature, all that type of stuff, and then also going to have a transmission temperature gauge. The transmission that I'm going to be running is a NV4500. I've got a 2-wheel drive transmission, and over at school I'm doing the CNC machining program at the college here, so I'm going to build a custom divorce mount setup for it and build the adapter for the yoke and everything so that can all fit. I'm just going to use a Ford 32 spline input shaft and then put a yoke on there, run the big U-joints and everything, so it should be plenty stout. And all that'll get mounted up in there. That's actually, originally this truck had a 454. Well, it was actually a 468. It was a 454 30 over, and it was a really stout motor, but the problem with it was getting about 7 to 8 miles to the gallon. And to try and help that, I took out the Granny 4-speed and I put this NV4500 in here, and you can see the cross member that I'd built there back in the day about 3 years ago for the NV4500, which helped a little bit. It helped me get about consistently 8.5 miles to the gallon, but it was still just, you know, eating so much fuel it's not even funny, and that's why I wound up getting the Dodge. You know, and that's where this whole project came from. Is I love the Chevy truck. I mean, the 72, you can't beat them. They're really, really good trucks. But it wasn't getting the gas mileage, and at the time I was living 28 miles outside of town, so it was costing me a ton of money to drive back and forth every day. You know, because I was looking at, you know, about 40 to 60 miles a day driving, and it was killing me on the fuel prices, especially at the time. You know, the fuel was about $4 a gallon. So that's kind of where it's at right now. I haven't done anything to the rear suspension yet. That's actually going to be kind of the last thing I'm going to do. Like I said, it still has the 3/4 ton leafs in the front here, but once I put the Cummins in, I'm going to have the 1 ton leafs in there. So I figure the ride height's going to be probably about the same. If I get down here underneath and just kind of give you a reference, you can see how high the frame sits off the ground now. I mean, it's got about 20 inches of ground clearance right behind the hanger there. It's definitely up there in the air, because you can see that's a 16-inch wheel on there. So it's definitely come up in the air quite a bit, considering this thing was lowered when it was a 2-wheel drive. So I probably lifted the truck about 10 inches. Again, here you can see how tall the suspension sits, and it's got some real nice altitude to it. So still have some things to do. I've got this bolt up here in the front. That stud boss there, I need to go in and tap that out so that I can get a stud in there, and that's just a piece of all thread that I cut off. I'm actually going to have some studs made at a local bolt supply company here in town, and then be able to get that all put together. The plan for today is I need to, on the sides here, you can see where I've been welding in plates to reinforce it. The reason for welding that in, as you can see over here, these are the holes that the 2-wheel drive suspension mounted through. Now all these holes will get plug welded in, just to make sure that everything's nice and strong. That's a piece of 1/4 inch plate that's been welded in there, and I've been really careful not to get it too hot here, so nothing's warped and bent so far. I mean, I've been checking it all through the process and keeping measurements, and everything's staying really straight, and I'm just being as careful as I can be.